Help us thank volunteers with a celebration to remember. To register, visit serve.nebraska.gov and click Register Now. We hope to see you there. Paid for by Serve Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
You know, the year has been a great year for Aspen Builders. We have had many repeat customers, and we worked with a lot of new people building their dream home.
Bob Benish of Aspen Builders, and they've built neighborhoods in and around Lincoln for over 25 years.
It's amazing when you go through the building process. Okay, what do I need in this home? I need the 4 bedrooms. I need the walkout basement, or I need the big yard. It's fun to find that perfect lot, design the home, get everything that we need, and then we add those want things. We add the gourmet kitchen. We add the big walk-in pantry. What we try to do is balance a budget with things that you really need in the home. Get items included in this home that you won't find just in any home anymore. So in the end, you've got the perfect place.
Make your dream home a reality and call Aspen Builders at 423-6811. Online at aspenbuildersinc.com. Your home is waiting at Aspen Builders.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet, KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome in, gang. Tom Stevens here, Mike Melby there. Husker Rewind for another show early today. Again this week, Broncos play at 3 o'clock. We'll take you right up until kickoff. But to hell with the Broncos right now. It's all Vikings talk today. Greatest comeback in NFL history yesterday. If I was said to you, Mike Melby, Kirk Cousins will lead the greatest comeback in NFL history this year, how long would it have taken for you to stop laughing?
I don't know. I always thought Kirk Cousins was a decent quarterback that just kind of got a bad rap because they paid him so much money. And I don't know that he was worth being the highest paid quarterback in the history of of mankind. But at the same time, I never thought he was.
He's made a lot of money, and yesterday he earned it. The Vikings down 33-0 at halftime. It was 36-7 in the third quarter, and they come back with 2 minutes left. Dalvin Cook scores on a long touchdown pass, goes into overtime, and Joseph makes the winning kick. I don't know if you saw the last play. Jefferson gets a pass from Kirk Cousins. It goes for about 10 yards. It's in field goal range, and the Colts are on top of him, trying to keep him down. And I'm going, man, he can't get up. You got to call some sort of penalty on that. Finally, they called a delay of game, stop the clock, and Joseph kicks the winning kick, and the Vikings win in overtime, in overtime, 39-36.
The run by Dalvin Cook after the catch, though, that was insane.
He is it's just a bubble screen, basically. And he turned it into a 60-plus yarder for a touchdown. That kid is really, he has to be, if he's not the fastest guy in the NFL, he's top 5 in the NFL.
Oh, he can move.
So it's not going to be all Vikings talk today. Lots of Husker football recruiting talk. Mike Schaefer will be on with us within the next 20 minutes, talking about a busy weekend. 3 commits for Husker football this weekend, and it feels like there's going to be more coming.
Well, and that's the thing is one of the biggest tellers, if there's going to be a commit announcement coming soon, is Nebraska staffer Omar Hales. He comes out and does from the
a lot of cryptic
south end
tweets.
South end zone to the north end zone with the fireworks going off like a third quarter celebration type of a quick little snippet GIF video. And he did 2 of them, and one of them is like Texas, Nebraska, or Texas Huskers, and the other one was just a GBR. But it makes you wonder, let's see, who's from Texas?
Every staff has a different way of doing that. Bo Pelini it was always boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
When a commit is about to happen. The Calabrasca movement was something under Mike Riley, which never really worked out. Keyshawn, that was kind of cool. Keyshawn Johnson was here for a second. But now it's all cryptic, really, under Matt Rule so far.
If in the world of entertaining Twitter accounts to follow, Matt Rule is got to be in the top somewhere. And not just in the coaching profession. I'm talking overall.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially for Husker Nation and the fan base, because he does so many cryptic tweets. The clock yesterday was driving everybody nuts.
I don't know what he's saying.
I'm still screaming, what does this mean?
What does it mean? What does it all mean, Basil?
I mean, and the clock is somebody said, well, it's at 5:00. It must be a 5-star. And if you look at the clock, no, it's at 12:25.
Right.
I don't think there's any 12:25 stars, but whatever.
I don't know what it all means, but I'm excited about it. It feels like this guy can recruit. We'll talk a lot of recruiting today. We got to get to the starting gate. That's how we start every show. Try to review the weekend, give you an idea of how fast this show moves. To the starting gate, it's Mike Melby. That's you.
Is it?
Yeah, that's you.
I was waiting for the horns to get done. Last Monday, interesting day down in Austin, Texas. Texas men's basketball coach Chris Beard was arrested on felony domestic violence charges, third-degree assault of a family member to impede breath circulation or strangulation. He has been suspended without pay until further notice. In a somewhat related story, Nebraska parted ways with former interim head coach and wide receivers coach Mickey Joseph this last week after his charges on domestic violence, charges including strangulation from a couple of weeks ago. So the Mickey Joseph era at Nebraska is now over officially. Sad news on Monday night, leaving a massive void in college football. Mississippi State head coach Mike Leach passed away. Sounds like a massive heart attack on Sunday afternoon, and then possibly a stroke on top of it or whatever.
By the way, if you're not a subscriber, you should be, of Husker Online. And Steve Sipple wrote a great article after talking with Bill Moose. They had him on early break, but great article on Mike Leach and how weird and great he is.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of the tributes were amazing. The one where it's a video taken a couple of years ago, I believe he was talking with Jeremy Schaff, and he goes, long time down the road, what's how do you want your obituary to read?
Mm-hmm.
And he laughs and he goes, well, that's the problem of whoever the hell's writing the thing. I'll be dead. I don't care. And I mean, it's just, he was so polarizing. No matter where he went, he had this thirst for knowledge, for conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing was, reporters would say, can I interview you? And he'd say, sure, but he'd learn more about them than they would about him.
We had him on years ago, and I got his number, called his number, and this happens with only a few coaches ever. Like Barry Switzer is one of those who will answer his own phone. Mike Leach is the same way. This is Mike. Yeah, I'll talk to you. Let's go. And you're right. He asks you more questions. He's the most inquisitive guy I've ever had on the air, and he will be sorely missed in college football and in life.
And that's what it was. The thirst for knowledge, for conversation, for intellect, and the desire that he had to help young men not only become better on the football field, but become better human beings was, I don't want to say it's second to none, because there's a boatload of coaches that do care tremendously about making the young men that come play for them in football or basketball, or, with the ladies side coaches that bring in for, whether it's volleyball or basketball or track or whatever. So many coaches do strive to make their athletes in their sport that play for them better human beings off the field, off the court, etc.
Right.
But Mike Leach is one of those guys that you have to say cared as much as anybody else.
There was some debate. Did they play the bowl game? And of course you play the bowl game. That's one thing that Mike Leach would have wanted. And by the way, the bowl game is going to be played in Tampa in a pirate ship. So you got to play that bowl game.
Did you see the new design?
No, I have not seen that.
It's a pirate flag. Is the Mississippi State logo on the side of their helmets.
That's fantastic. That's just great.
So let's see. Finals week this week, so not a ton of college basketball going on for the men or the women for Nebraska. However, the men did lose last night, 71-56. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a couple of minutes. Women take on Wyoming at 2:00 this afternoon at PBA. And yesterday in the Celebration Bowl, North Carolina Central beat Deion Sanders and the Jackson State Tigers 41-34 in overtime. Deion's last game at Jackson State. Hayden Hagler will be the most unpopular person on the Jackson State campus as he dropped a sure TD on third down in overtime that cost the Tigers a chance to tie it up and send it to a second overtime. Deion moves on to Colorado now. And, oh, wow, big surprise news coming out of Jackson State football program this morning. Shadur Sanders has entered the transfer portal.
I'm stunned. You think he'll be following his dad, Deion, to Colorado?
Gosh, I don't know. Nebraska could use a quarterback, or maybe they don't. That's a question we might have to ask our guest coming on.
Wouldn't it be the greatest thing ever if a son ever says, you know what, Dad, no.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to go. And then to go play for what used to be your arch rival, Nebraska. That would be extremely hilarious. Yeah. I'm going to wrap up the starting gate with something that we're going to really get into in a bit. Transfer portal this week and recruiting this week for Nebraska has been absolutely wild. A couple of just cherries on top of this massive cupcake of gooey goodness of recruiting.
It is gooey goodness.
It is. And it's all the twists and turns. 2024 number one prospect in the country, quarterback Dylan Raiola, has decommitted from Ohio State. He did that Saturday. Nebraska obviously in the mix for him now. And there's some great talent that said, you know what, I'm in.
Does it make you rethink why Donovan Raiola was hired at Nebraska?
Not in any way, shape, or form. And
I think it's very possible Matt Rule looked at Donovan Raiola and said, I really like his style. I like the way he coaches. But it would also have been possible for him to look at Nebraska's offensive performance this year and say, that's not going to cut it. And of all the assistant coaches, I'm probably not going to keep that guy. But if he thought he had a chance at the number one player in the 2024 class, I'm guessing that could help Donovan Raiola's case.
Probably can. And, I don't want to say they're excuses, but the limitations that Donovan Raiola faced with, bottom line, strength and conditioning of his offensive line when he came in, and just the state of the program, and the mentality of the program, the culture of the program, an uphill battle for him. Yeah. Things didn't go well.
It sounded like we know that he and Greg Austin had problems, right, relating to each other. Their philosophical differences were long. And we thought that would not be the case with Donovan Raiola. Maybe it wasn't the case with Frost and Donovan. Maybe they agreed on everything. But there are a few guys that I think Donovan wanted to bring in that Frost said no on. So I wonder even if there were philosophical differences there. We'll see going forward. He's got some. I mean, he's the one coach you would have said that's a little suspicious that he's being kept. But if he gets Dylan Raiola to commit to Nebraska, along with, I think Dominic has a big influence there, and they've already said, "Hey, we're starting all over in recruiting."
And that's something too. I had a couple of, we'll call them big Husker fans that like to send me a quick text and say, "Hey, did you hear what's going on?" And one of them, they asked how soon until he commits to Nebraska. And I laughed. I said, well, first and foremost, there's no guarantee he's going to.
And even if he does, he can't sign for a year.
Yeah. And second, I wouldn't anticipate this happening based on everything that I think you've read as well as I have and everything that's out there. It's going to be a while. They're going to take some time off of the whole recruiting thing over the holidays and not necessarily start the process over. But I don't envision Dylan Raiola coming out here within the next week and saying, I'm committing to school XYZ.
And even if he does, I don't care. Because we already said that it's already happened where he committed to Ohio State and it didn't mean a lot.
Yeah.
So anytime somebody commits anywhere and they haven't signed, it doesn't mean a lot to me. I mean, it will Wednesday when they actually sign.
Yeah.
I mean, that's signing day. So that'll be, are we done with the starting gate? Anything else?
Yeah, no, we are. And we'll, like I said, we'll get into the number of people that have signed or that will be signing here next Wednesday, especially the 5 or 6 that have announced here in the last week.
Prepare yourself for all Vikings talk, or at least a few minutes of Vikings talk when Mike Schaefer gets here. Husker 24/7. We will talk lots of recruiting, little Vikings talk as well. The greatest comeback in NFL history. No way to avoid that when you've got Mike Schaefer on, who's a big Vikings fan, as am I, wearing my Adam Thielen jersey today. But let's start with basketball. As Nebraska falls to Kansas State last night at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City, 71-56. Nebraska down at 13 at halftime. They make a little bit of a run at the end of that game, but it was not enough as Keontae Johnson was the man. 23 points, 11 rebounds. He was 9 of 13 from the field. He was easily the best player on the floor. Nebraska shooting woes, and we know that this team will have those because they always seem to. They shoot 32%, I should say, from the field. They were 4 of 21 from 3, 19%. They actually shot their free throws fairly well, 16 of 22, 72%. But a career high 13 points for Wilhelm Breidenbach wasn't enough for Nebraska. So Nebraska falls now to 6-6 to a 10-1 Kansas State team. That's a really good team that they saw last night in Kansas State.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the question that I know you, I think maybe even asked me last night as we were sitting down at Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill, proud sponsor of the ticket.
That's right.
Watching the game. But if Keontae Johnson manages to commit to Nebraska, not Kansas State, if he would have been allowed to commit here, and I'll say allowed to commit here without getting into too much elaboration. Right. At any rate, if he's playing for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, is Kansas State more than likely a 500 team right now, and is Nebraska 10-2 or 11-1?
Yes. I would say Nebraska beats Purdue. They beat Creighton again, and only, instead of 10 points, it's probably 20 points. They win a couple of those games, probably Oklahoma, probably against Memphis. They probably have a couple losses, but no more than that. They played 12 games. I would say they're 10-2 right now. Nebraska is 10-2 with Keontae Johnson on the roster.
And I would completely agree. He's a game changer. He's a guy that if he was playing for Nebraska right now, he would be, if he stayed healthy, a shoo-in.
Makes everybody better.
First team all-conference player.
You have to be concerned about where he is. He has a beautiful floater. He can shoot the three. He's long. He's athletic. He's great on the defensive end. Did not choose Nebraska because he collapsed when he was playing for the University of Florida, had a heart condition, still has a heart condition. Nebraska doctors judged that he was probably not worth anybody's risk to be playing college basketball. And you can totally understand Nebraska's point of view there. You're concerned about the kid's health. But instead of choosing Nebraska, and I think Fred Hoiberg really wanted him to choose Nebraska, he chooses Kansas State. And it's ironic that he has a heart condition because I didn't see anybody on the floor with more heart last night than him.
Yeah.
Than Keontae Johnson.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And it's, it's disappointing. I think when he made the decision to go to K-State, and we knew that the doctors were not comfortable with him coming to Nebraska. There's still a chance that he could suffer another incident, et cetera. And that's the last thing you would want to have happen. I remember making the comment, I just want the kid to be healthy. I hope he goes on to a long, successful, healthy life and career. And with his talent and ability, he's going to play in the NBA. I just wish it would have been here, but the last thing I would have ever wanted is for him to take the risk. But if he is okay, his doctors are okay with it, obviously they are, and he is going to be an all Big 12 conference player. He may be a second or third team All-American, and he's going to lead them to at least the NCAA tournament.
That's an NCAA tournament team, and it looks like a Sweet 16 team.
That's what
potentially
I would say
to me.
Yeah.
And I totally understand Nebraska's point of view. Hey, I've had 2 heart attacks, Mike. I tried to get long-term health care insurance, turned down. I mean, I'm not worth the liability for a company like that. I get it, why Nebraska would be concerned about liability. And there is a risk to taking somebody like that, even if the risk is very small. My point is, Nebraska, if anything in the world needs to take a risk, if any program in the world needs to take a chance, it's probably Nebraska basketball. The last team in Power 5 basketball not to have won an NCAA tournament game. Yeah. That guy is a game changer. And Nebraska struggles not only to shoot, but just to score in general. There's so many times where I appreciate the effort, and we're going to talk about the effort. And the effort, even though Hoiberg wasn't happy with it last night, you still saw effort. Jawan Gary gives you effort every time out. Bandamel gives you effort every time out. Derek Walker didn't have his best night, but there's effort there. Greasel didn't have his best effort night, I don't think, last night. The shooting is the problem, all right? If Nebraska is just a decent shooting team, they're probably in that game till the very end.
They are, and the other problem, and it's a couple of quotes though that stood out to me on the post game. Fred Hoiberg summed the game up like this, and this is as close to a direct quote as I can find. It was all about the basics. It was getting back in transition. It was taking care of the basketball, and it was rebounding. And we got our ass kicked in all three areas. We're not talented enough. We're not good enough to get outworked. And they did. They got outworked in that opening 20 minutes. And I think Fred made the comment during the postgame. Every single loose ball, 50-50 ball in the first half went to K-State because they outworked us, they out-hustled us, and got to them when we did not. That cannot happen.
Yeah.
And he recognizes the fact we are not a pretty team. We have to outwork every single opponent, regardless of the opponent.
You can't have an off night working.
And the thing was, defensively, we did work. We were down 19 points, and it was one of the best defensive stops of the game on our defensive end. And we went down and hit a three and cut it to 16. That was kind of where we started creeping back into the game. But because you made the comment on that, you're like, that's a great defensive play. And I looked at the score, and I'm like, and we're down 19.
But it rips your heart out when you can't make shots. Kansas State was making threes. They made 10 of them last night. And Jerome Tang, I believe that's how it's pronounced, the new coach of Kansas State, first-year coach there, who replaced Bruce Weber. Doing that dance drove me crazy. But he said after the game, we know the recipe to beat Nebraska is keep them out of the paint. Keep them out of the paint, make them shoot from beyond 5 feet, and you're probably going to have a good chance. And if you can't if Tominaga's not making threes and Wilcher's not making threes, where are the threes going to come from?
Jamarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, Jamarcus Lawrence had a nice night. He had 9 points, 3 of 4. And that
three.
But if those two guys who are your best shooters aren't making shots, and they haven't made shots for a while. I mean, Tominaga 1 of 8, 0 of 4 from 3. Wilcher 1 of 4 from 3, 1 of 7 overall. You're in trouble.
They combined to shoot 13% yesterday. They're 2 of 15 overall.
Yeah, 19%, 4 of 21 for Nebraska shooting threes. That ain't going to get it done. And you can say, well, just don't take threes. And that kind of was the recipe against Creighton. They only took 12 or 13 threes in that game.
Yeah, but they owned the paint against one of the better centers in the country.
Right.
And the thing is, Kansas State doesn't have one of the better centers in the country, and they owned the paint against us defensively.
Yeah. And you got the feeling once Walker got in foul trouble, he got 2, he had to sit on the bench, that Nebraska might be in trouble. I don't understand. There's one thing I don't understand about what Hoiberg is doing right now. Why is Blaze Keita not playing more? I think he struggles sometimes positioning defensively, but just his presence sometimes in games changes games. He can block shots. He rebounds. He's usually pretty good with putbacks if he's within 5 feet of the goal. He's not getting hardly any minutes at all. And that's the National Junior College Player of the Year.
Yeah, and he takes more charges than anybody on the team as well. That's the other thing defensively. He's fantastic. Frederick Frank probably off the text line said, doesn't Fred have a heart condition too? Yes, he does. It's why he had to retire from the NBA. He's got a pacemaker. Yeah. And
Fred wanted Keontae Johnson bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't Fred's decision. It was not Fred's decision.
It was a medical decision.
It was a medical decision. But that's just a guy that, man, I understand the risk of taking a chance on a guy like that. But he's a program changer. He literally is a program changer.
He really is.
You become an NCAA tournament team with a guy like that. I mean, I think he's proven it to Kansas State. Kansas State has other players, but he's the guy.
He is.
Yeah.
Another man who is the guy and a program changer is going to change our program here in a couple of minutes. His name is Mike Schaefer from 24/7 Sports.
Segue.
We will be back with more after this on the Husker Rewind.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The Ticket Water Cooler with Jake Bockelvin and Enrique Alvarez Clary.
With Tony White in his 3-3-5 system that he's going to bring to Nebraska, do you think that's a fit in the Big Ten?
It does seem like a type of defense that allows for a lot of different formations at the point of attack. It's not that they're only going to have 3 down linemen, it's that it allows for pressure to come from a lot of different spots. In terms of, rushing the passer, which is something that Nebraska has kind of been lacking in.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
I'm Chris Jackmick. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately, in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jackmick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
How is your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
First, I hold my hands out like they're on a steering wheel. Then I look over my shoulder. Next, I put it in reverse.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam, ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Into the building for the first time after the shooting. It was crippling, but it had to be preserved.
In response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that affected the LGBTQ community, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse, founded the One Pulse Foundation to honor Pulse victims and survivors.
If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart. It is the power of love in its rawest form.
Join the fight for LGBTQ acceptance. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. Sundays here on 93.7 The Ticket, ticketfm.com. I'm Mike Melby. That is Tom Stevens. We are now joined on the Honda of Lincoln hotline from Husker 24/7, brought to you by the On3 Network, Mr. Mike Schaefer. Mike, I have to say, as a Dallas Cowboys fan, again, thank you for taking Herschel Walker off our hands and handing us 3 titles. But congratulations.
You can't go to Herschel Walker 30 years later.
I can, because my Cowboys have sucked since that whole run ended. So,
right. Okay.
But congratulations, your Vikings with the greatest comeback in NFL history yesterday. How was your dog? Because I know in the Trek CBD commercials, you talk about you're yelling at the TV. And it could upset your dog. Did your dog make it through the broadcast okay?
It was like the weirdest possible experience for a memorable Vikings game. I had a family Christmas, and so Slider, I wasn't even around Slider. And on top of it, my mom basically asked very early on if we could just turn the football off so the focus could be on family Christmas. So I obliged. I'm a good son. And that was before the wheels had fallen off for the Vikings entirely. They were only down 3-0 at that point. And so I wasn't even watching. I was following along on my phone, keeping an eye on the score. I saw 33-0 at halftime, and I have the receipts for this. I even tweeted it out. They're only 5 touchdowns away. Turns out they got those 5 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion, make the biggest comeback in NFL history. Kirk Cousins' revitalization continues in Minnesota. It's amazing what happens when you have a coach that the players want to play for and believe in. And I think Kevin O'Connell's doing a really nice job. I mean, I would prefer if they wouldn't go down 33-0 to the Indianapolis Colts or teams like the Indianapolis Colts. But hey, as long as they win, that's all that matters. They won the NFC North for 2022, and we'll see if they can keep it rolling.
So at what point, Mike, did you say, to hell with the family, I'm turning on the game?
So they got within that last touchdown, and I happened to get it on right the play before Sullivan returned his second touchdown that didn't count, but they actually gave the Vikings a fumble recovery there.
Right.
And so I was able to negotiate a truce with my mother on this. She was fine with it. But then, it's getting into overtime, and then there's talk of family photos. And one of my nephews has gotten really into football, and he wouldn't sit for the photos, so the TV had to go off again. It was a whole experience. Yeah. It was basically, I had to make peace with the fact that I wasn't at my house, hidden away from society, and I was forced to watch a game like a normal person.
Yeah. If I would have told you that Kirk Cousins leads the greatest comeback in NFL history at the start of the season, what would you have said to me?
I probably would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
Look, the thing is, I have probably been higher on Cousins than maybe most are. Yeah. But I think a lot of that has to just come down to he's a better quarterback than, Tom and I and other Vikings fans are largely used to. It's just that they're an imperfect team, and he's sort of an imperfect quarterback, and combined, it's pretty combustible. But as we've seen, you put him in a situation where they go up tempo on offense, he's really good. He's a good quarterback when they can sort of speed teams up. I mean, and then you throw in having a guy in Justin Jefferson. I can't believe I'm saying this as someone who became a Vikings fan because of Randy Moss and my appreciation of him at Marshall, and then just choosing the Vikings because that's where he went. Justin Jefferson might be better. I mean, this guy is just he's incredible.
Better than Randy Moss
on that touchdown. Did you guys see that?
Yep.
That's against Stephon Gilmore. That's one of the best corners in the NFL. And he made him look absolutely silly on an in and out route. And it was just to have that kind of ability at the age that he does, he could just be an absolute monster in this league if he's not already.
It's not only the catches for me, it's the ability to hold on to the football after just being hammered time and time again. Yeah. That guy, of course, a couple of weeks ago, we just saw the greatest catch maybe in NFL history, that Buffalo game. I mean, I thought I'd never see a better catch than that, and I probably never will. But you make a point. But better than Randy Moss, it seems kind of crazy to me. Seems kind of crazy.
It feels premature, but then you look at kind of the impact he's had over 3 years, and it's like his numbers are better. He's got more. Now the league has changed a little bit, and all of that. But I mean, and the other thing is he doesn't have Chris Carter or Jake Reed to take some catches away either. But at the same time, I mean, he has just been everything you ever could have imagined him to be.
Yeah.
So the pivotability of this show is something I am so thrilled with, because we have gone from the Husker Rewind to the Viking Rewind. However, I want to ask Mike Schaefer a question.
All right.
How many potential future Minnesota Vikings in the last week said, you know what, I'd like to play my college ball at the University of Nebraska?
Well, we'll see. They've had a lot of commitments here. It's hard to keep up with Omar Hales and his seemingly once an hour, every hour tweet of the fireworks over Memorial Stadium to signify they've gotten another commitment. They picked up 3 yesterday: Jalen Lloyd, Corey Collier, the Florida transfer, and then Ramir Stewart, the defensive back out of Pennsylvania. I would expect at least several today, though there hasn't been, to my knowledge, has not been an announcement for any yet, but I think that's coming. I know that the several guys have committed on their way out of Lincoln here today, and so we'll see how that all plays out. But they did this when they were at Baylor. I wrote about this as one of the first things I posted after Matt Rule was hired. They didn't get a commitment until just after December, the first year that they were at Baylor, or the first month that they were at Baylor, and then they got 27 by the time that February signing period rolled around. They know how to get commitments in bunches. They know how to create excitement. They know when to push really hard. They're a veteran coaching staff that has good recruiting chops. They understand this stuff really well. And I mean, they're not going out there and they're not going to set a new high for Nebraska's best recruiting class ever, but they're creating excitement in a transition year. And in the case of some of these guys, I think they have some guys who could be some multi-year starters for them potentially coming out of this class. So it's been exciting to cover, to say the very least.
Talking Husker football recruiting with Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7. It feels like, and this is a recipe that they've had wherever they've been. We take track stars and we make them great football players. If you run a 10-500, there's a good chance you're going to get a scholarship offer from Nebraska. Is anybody else in college football doing this?
Well, I think everybody in college football likes the idea of multi-sport track athletes, especially because that's the sort of thing that, the footwork, the ability to run, the ability to move, that kind of athleticism you can't teach. I mean, that's the thing about Matt Rule is he's very much determined, okay, maybe you're not the most refined, technically sound football player ever, but you can run. You know what I can't do? I can't teach you to run faster. I can't make you faster, but I can make you a better football player. I can teach you the nuances of how to, do things from a technical side, but I can't make you faster. And when you're looking at a Bryce Turner or Jalen Lloyd and guys that are running, 10 twos and 10 threes for the 100-meter dash, I mean, they may not be the most refined football players, but they're guys that Matt Rule has had success with. And so I think his strategy of just finding, especially right now, even if they're not highly rated, finding guys that just have one elite skill is more valuable to him than trying to find a well-rounded player who's played a lot of football that maybe doesn't have a lot of upside. And so I think they're taking some lottery tickets and they're hoping they can develop one or two of these guys out of 4 or 5 and see what happens with them. And that's a pretty good strategy in a transition class because that's what this is. I mean, you're not going to probably build the next great Nebraska roster off this class alone, but you can find some pieces that'll help you win games.
Mike, if I asked you what your thoughts were on quarterback Trent Seaborn, would you know who that is?
It's an 8th grader out of Alabama in the class of 2027. And just saying the phrase 2027 is almost fear-inducing for me. That's 5 years from now. I'd be 40 years old, and I don't want to think about it.
Well, Mike, some of us don't even remember 40. So
over 40. So sorry.
Yeah, some of us don't remember 40. That
I
was
barely
that long
remember
ago.
50 anymore.
Nebraska has offered Trent Seaborn a scholarship. So Matt Rule planning for 5 years down the road. Speaking of quarterback, we had I'm forgetting his name. Hornsby, Malik Hornsby.
Malik Hornsby
was in town. Former Arkansas quarterback. He was in town over the weekend. He was recruited by Matt Rule at Baylor. However, Rule ultimately took the job with the Panthers, and Hornsby went instead of to Baylor, which he said he probably would have, to Arkansas. Nebraska probably has a pretty good shot at him. From what I read, if he does commit, it's going to be sometime Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this next week. But for Nebraska next season, is it looking more and more like Casey Thompson is going to be back?
Well, that's kind of the million-dollar question. The thing about Malik Hornsby that's really interesting is that he's probably being viewed by everyone except a few schools as more of a gadget player or a wide receiver. Nebraska said they'd give him an opportunity to play quarterback. If you take a guy like this, it could be a decent backup plan to the health of Casey Thompson, who may not be able to go through spring ball for you if he chooses to come back at all. And so, it's a decent sort of backup option with a really talented athlete who, again, could move positions if they needed him to. Like, if they need him to be a wide receiver in 2023, they could do that. If they want him to be a running back, if they want him to be a quarterback, he'll have that opportunity to go through spring ball. I think that's the pitch from Nebraska. Is that going to be enough? I don't know, because there are a couple schools where if he chooses to go there, he'd be able to be a quarterback no matter what. The difference is we're talking Power 5 versus Group of 5. So how much does that matter to a Malik Hornsby, who's been at a Power 5 school at Arkansas, but could never get out ahead of KJ Jefferson, the quarterback there?
Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7. We've talked about Jalen Lloyd, track star. Didn't have any offers before Nebraska offered him. Now he's up to a 3-star after being a no-star. But Corey Collier, we know a little bit more about the Florida transfer who committed over the weekend. He's a 4-star, top 100 guy formerly. Ramir Stewart, a safety, first guy from Philly for Nebraska in 20 years. What can you tell us about those two guys?
Yeah, Ramir Stewart, we'll start there. I think he was regarded as a real up-and-comer as a sophomore. And so I think there was a lot of excitement about him, initially, and I don't know that his development stayed on that same sort of track. So some of the offers that he has on his profile aren't necessarily schools that were still coming after him. But this is a guy that immediately Nebraska looked at and said, okay, let's take a shot here. This was a highly regarded. Maybe people have moved on, but we're going to take a look. And they brought him in for a visit. They had coaches out there to watch him play in the state title games. I mean, so they evaluated here, and this is someone that I'd put in that kind of lottery ticket category, a guy who maybe the shine is a little bit off from where it was before, but someone that's regarded as a defensive back that could step in and potentially be a safety down the line, has some pedigree to him. And so they're going to see where that goes. Corey Collier's not all that different. I mean, a highly rated guy, went to Florida, didn't quite work out. Close friends with the Boodle family. Obviously, DiCaprio had a great career at Nebraska. Dwight's going to come to Nebraska. And now Corey Collier is looking for a new home. Nebraska's looking for pieces that have a little experience. He could come in this spring and kind of help out with that defensive back room, which had some questions. And it has some intriguing pieces. I mean, that's an area on the football field with Tony White and with Evan Cooper. I'm really fascinated in what direction they go.
A couple of questions on some visitors that we did have this weekend. First and foremost, I want to get your thoughts on whether or not Chief Borders becomes the third former Florida Gator to become a Nebraska Cornhusker. He was in town. And then running back Kyron Jones, Mason Goldman from Gretna, Princewell Umanlin, an edge rusher, Eric Fields, linebacker out of Oklahoma. All those guys were in town. Do you see thoughts of any of them putting Nebraska in their top couple and maybe committing to Nebraska sometime in the next week or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could see several of those guys end up in Nebraska's class on Wednesday. I mean, I think the most interesting name in there, Princewell Umanlin from Texas, really intriguing edge rusher, a guy that Matt Rule had recruited his middle brother, Princely, before he ended up at Florida and before Matt Rule went to Carolina. And so the family knew him really well. They went down there for an in-home visit, stopped at the family restaurant, a Nigerian restaurant in Austin. That's where that photo for Matt Rule came from earlier this week. And so they did a really nice job recruiting him. I feel good about that. I have a crystal ball in for Nebraska there. Eric Fields, pretty fascinating story. He's a linebacker out of Oklahoma, really deep, Nebraska and Arkansas State, I think, are the two teams that were looking at him. But you turn on the film, and he's a really interesting athlete. He could fit in that 3-3-5 rover spot. His dad is a professional boxer, so he's got some athletic lineage. Just kind of a unique story and fits that kind of, they're going to go find talent and they're going to find it anywhere. Even if it's a guy that necessarily no one else has heard of, they're going to take a look, and Eric Fields fits that. Mason Goldman from Gretna, I like that as a potential commitment, for Nebraska. Chief Borders, we'll see what happens. I don't know who else is looking at him. And so when you're kind of in that spot where you got a couple teammates that have already committed to a school, you came up with Corey Collier for this visit, knows him well. You got to know Dwight Boodle and other people on the visit. I would think Nebraska's in a pretty good spot there. Kyron Jones, the running back, was at Georgia last weekend. He's in Nebraska this weekend. Sure looks like he's looking to go somewhere that isn't NC State. I've heard the visit went well. I know we had an update that just got up on our site as this interview started here at Husker 24/7. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Kyron Jones could end up being Nebraska's running back in this class.
We know Malachi Coleman visited Colorado and Deion Sanders. Will he sign Wednesday? And if so, where?
He said that he wanted to wait until February, but then he moved off the Michigan visit to Colorado, and this would give him his first official visit that isn't Nebraska. It gives him an opportunity to kind of compare those places. I don't know what other schools he's hearing from or where he'd want to take visits in January. I know that if he doesn't sign, he would be one of those more highly rated players available in the 2023 class. So that kind of allows you to reset your recruitment in January moving forward. But if he was able to go to Colorado and then he can kind of compare with Nebraska, he might be able to just make a decision and put pen to paper as early as this Wednesday. So we'll see what happens with Malachi. Haven't heard anything yet on that official visit, but I still like Nebraska to ultimately walk away with him. And, we didn't mention this. Benny Nagoy was on an official visit to Nebraska this weekend as well, the Lincoln High player. He had a really good time. I talked to him this morning. He's still committed to Iowa State. He's going to sign on Wednesday. He did not tip his hand as to what he's doing. I think Nebraska might be able to flip him as well. Like I said, there's a lot happening here in Lincoln right now.
Well, and that was going to be my follow-up question to Malachi Coleman is Benny Nagoy. My understanding from everything I've read, I don't know on Huskers 24/7, was suggesting that he had a really good visit, and there is a possibility. So.
When was the last time Nebraska got a Lincoln High guy? It's been a while, hasn't it?
I mean, does Robin Washit count? Is he a Lincoln High guy?
Yeah, I
Kevin
think
Kugler?
I think
those
Kugler.
are.
I was going to say Tom
Those
Stevens
are the
too.
people I can talk about.
That's right. Well, you enjoy your NFL weekend, knowing the Vikings are already, in the victory column and going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I mean, people complain about those Thursday games. There's something really nice about a Sunday. And obviously they played on Saturday, but there's something nice about a Sunday that you already know that you can't lose. They already won. It's already 1-0, Tom.
That's right. It's
great.
over. Celebrate.
I'm
Skull, baby.
I'm just watching the Chiefs struggle with the Texans and trying to figure out Cowboys-Jaguars is the game that we get stuck with here locally. I still haven't really understood any decisions made by the local channels this year, but here we are.
There you go. Skull.
Skull indeed.
There you go. Mike Schaefer. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys.
I guess the weekend is
Thanks,
already
Mike.
over, really. But he's not really. I mean, he's working. It's all
Well, I was
work
going to
right
say
now.
with Schaefer, Sipple, Washit, the entire crew
those
there,
guys are
and anybody that it makes no difference.
Um,
It's crunch time 4 days before signing day, and they're all 24/7 on call because that's what they have to do. And
This is
they give us
great.
great
This is a
info.
crazy time. I don't know what Nebraska is getting with a lot of these recruits, but they're athletes, and it feels like you've got a guy in Matt Rule that has a history of taking athletes and making them good, which has been a while. It's been a while since Nebraska's done that. So I guess I'm excited.
I am
like
too.
recruiting.
And I know you do. You were one that would always go up to the yearly post-signing day event where the coaches could get in depth and show film.
But that was before. Now you get so much information. I don't feel like I need to do that as much anymore. I mean, you've got guys like Mike Schaefer. You've got guys like Steve Sipple and Sean Callahan and Robin Washington that give you all the football and basketball recruiting news. And I don't feel like I need to. Those were fun, though, back in the day because Nebraska was actually winning national titles. So it was kind of fun. And I remember when Bill Callahan signed a top 5 class. I think it was, one time number 1. I went up to an Omaha hotel location and watched Callahan. It was cool even back then when you knew this is probably not going to work out. And it didn't.
Well, and he winds up taking Marlon Lucky, who was a very, very talented young man. And Lucky committed before his other choice that was down between Nebraska and Oregon. And that young man's name was Jonathan Stewart.
Right.
So don't tell me that the one thing Bill Callahan knew how to recruit. He could identify
he
talent,
and John
man.
Blake, who turned out to be a cheater. But those guys could recruit. There were stories of Bill Callahan writing a handwritten letter to Marlon Lucky every day. Please come to Nebraska. I love you. Let's get to break and come back. We'll talk some more recruiting. I think our opinions on what's going on and this whole track thing that Matt Rule is doing. Will it work out? Do you like it? We'll talk about it coming up. Mike Melby there. Tom Stevens here. It is Husker Rewind.
This is Lindsay Teal from the Nebraska golf team. If you're looking for a Christmas gift for the avid golfer in your life, don't give them something they can't even use until spring. Get them the gift of indoor golf from Double Eagle Golf. Grab a gift card for a stocking stuffer, or give the gift of a membership and let them golf all year long. Their space is also perfect for Christmas parties, corporate events, birthday parties, or anything else. See for yourself. Double Eagle Golf, just 5 minutes from downtown at the Kinetic Sports Complex on West O Street.
Veterans, do you know what local, state, and federal benefits and services you're eligible to receive? Do you want help navigating the application or appeals process? Speak to your county veteran service officer or the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs State Service Office to see what's available to you and your family. You've served our country, now let us serve you. Visit veterans.nebraska.gov today. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Adoption of teens from foster care is a topic not enough people know about, and we're here to change that. I'm April Dinwiddie, host of the new podcast, Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Each episode brings you compelling real-life adoption stories told by the families that live them with commentary from experts. Visit adoptuskids.org/podcast or subscribe to Navigating Adoption presented by Adopt US Kids. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families and the Ad Council.
A smoke-free environment is the only way to fully protect from the dangers of secondhand smoke. That's why smoke-free policies are so important to me. Whether it's in my car, apartment building, or when I'm dining outdoors, there's no place for secondhand smoke or e-cigarette aerosol. Breathe easier knowing the facts. Visit smokefree.ne.gov. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Sunday Rewind, Sunday Husker Rewind. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens. I love signing day. Maybe not as much as I used to, because there used to be just one signing day. Now you can sign in December, and you can sign now in February as well, and some guys hold off. I actually think it helps the bigger schools that you can get most of your class signed on Wednesday, and then you can go raid other commitments from other schools February. You see what you need after signing day, the first signing day, and then the second signing day, you kind of, maybe it's become more about transfers. It'll be interesting to see how it is going forward. Is the second signing day really more about transfers than the first signing day? But it's interesting to me where Nebraska's going, because I don't totally have a handle on where this will be. Maybe it's just a first recruiting class for Matt Rule. I'm going to go after guys that have great speed and find them a position. I'm going to go get Jalen Lloyd, who runs a 10-400, 10-300, whatever it is, and put him at defensive back or wide receiver, or maybe running back if he gets big enough. I'm going to go get Bryce Turner. And how many guys run a 10-300? Not many. We'll find a place for him. It reminds me a little bit of DiCaprio Boodle. Do you remember that whole story with Mike Riley he did a Friday Night Lights camp in Florida, and nobody had ever heard about DiCaprio Boodle, but he runs like a 4.2 40, and Mike Riley says, you know what? I'll take that. And he ends up having a great career, maybe not a great career, but a really good career at Nebraska. And because of that, now you've got Dwight Boodle. And maybe you get, Corey Collier, who's, it's amazing how the chain reaction that has caused. I mean, just recruiting speed.
Well, and the story about DiCaprio Boodle, to me, reminded me at the time of one of my all-time favorite movies, Major League, and Willie Mays Hayes and Wesley Snipes and good old Lou Brown, when they put Snipes' bed wherever they do, and he wakes up, and he's not in the dorm room because he's a non-invitee, and in his bare feet and jammies, he goes out, and they look at the stopwatch, and they're like, somebody get that guy a uniform. And that's kind of what the whole DiCaprio Boodle thing was. He runs the 4.2 40, and everybody's like, check, please. Can we see that young man? We would like him to come play football.
But it doesn't stop there. I mean, Bryce Turner, nobody had ever heard of him. Nebraska offers him out of nowhere, and suddenly he's a 3-star. It's like he goes from a no-star to a 3-star overnight. Kyron Jones, a guy that I understand he's committed to North Carolina State, but he's a 10-6 meter guy. That's why Matt Rule likes him. Then you've got a guy like Eric Fields. Again, interesting. And his dad's a boxer, according to Mike.
Yeah.
Okay. Had 180 tackles in high school, but no offers. But Nebraska says, what? This guy's an athlete.
And he didn't have don't get me wrong here. He didn't have 180 tackles in high school. He had 180 tackles in a 10-game season this last year.
Yeah. But also a lot of coaches look at a guy, and let's face it, they do the same thing we recruitniks always do. Okay, yeah, he's fast. He had 180 tackles. Who's offered him?
Oh, and that's the funny thing about this class. And it's puzzling, bewildering, and spectacular, all rolled into one. You have Jalen Lloyd and
Bryce Turner.
Bryce Turner, 0 stars with little to no football scholarship offers. And then you have 5 stars or former 5-star / 4-star and Corey Collier Jr. And you just said his name, Ramir Stewart, who commits to Nebraska yesterday. Ramir Stewart, he's a 3-star, and
he had like 30 offers.
But
Alabama,
his offers
Georgia.
are Georgia, Alabama, USC.
It sounds
Penn
like
State.
a lot of those schools have backed off.
At the same time,
yeah.
So we're getting recruits in this class that prior to accepting a scholarship offer were 0 stars, and we're getting recruits in this class that were being recruited by teams that are in the college football playoff.
At some point, you just have to trust that this guy has done it before and he's going to do it again.
Well,
can you build a team with track athletes? I do know that Tom Osborne would watch a guy wrestle. Like he watched Steve Warren wrestle. That famous story of this guy's only 6 feet tall, 6.5 feet, and he's 300 pounds. He kind of squatty. Do I want Steve Warren on my defensive line? And then he went and saw him wrestle, and he thought, you know what? I want Steve Warren on my defensive line, one of the great defensive linemen of all time at Nebraska. And they've offered this kid from North Dakota, and it's hard for me to pronounce it because it's got about 15 consonants. Jason Macy, JC Zach or something like that. And he's been committed to North Dakota for a long time. But he's another guy, track athlete, shot putter, explosive. Let's give that guy a scholarship.
Yeah.
We don't care that North Dakota is the only school that's been recruiting him.
Well, and I think Mason Goldman out of Gretna is another prime example of a guy that I think you're going to wind up seeing him commit to Nebraska, and it's going to be huge to get him here. Off the Sartor Heyman text line, somebody's jumped in, and they're like, we always kind of poo-poo all over Mike Riley, but he did have a couple of finds that wound up being pretty darn good.
He did.
And because you got to think too, I Stanley Morgan and Divino Zigbo, Gerald Foster, all those guys came out of the Riley era.
The best running back of the Frost era was a Riley recruit.
Yeah,
Divino Zigbo. So yeah, I mean, he had some finds.
Well, Divine was. I thought he was in the last recruiting class from Pelini.
No, he was in the. I thought the Riley. Maybe that you could be right. You could be right on that one. I thought he was a Riley recruit, but I could be wrong on that.
Well,
I could be wrong on that.
You mentioned about at some point it seems like a lot of the fan base is just simply looking at Matt Rule and going, you know what? You've done this before. This seems weird for what we believe in Nebraska, which is 3 yards in a cloud of dust and pound the rock and run the ball. Guys losing his mind. Very talented writer for the Lincoln Journal-Star, Luke Mullen, has an article in today's paper about how Matt Rule endeared himself to Texas high school football coaches. He became only the second coach, the other one being Mac Brown, to teach at like their gigantic conference for high school coaches. There's over 1,000 high school football coaches in the state of Texas, and their massive conference that they have every year. He is only the second head coach from a Power 5 school to speak and be the keynote speaker, the other being Mac Brown. This is a guy from Pennsylvania or from New York that went to Penn State, that he was not welcomed with open arms when he was hired by Baylor. And they said it took about 6 hours. And all of a sudden the Texas high school coaches went, this is a guy I think I can relate to.
And I think Nebraska coaches, our high school coaches, are thinking the same thing. If this track thing works out, and it's already worked out, by the way, it worked at Temple, it worked at Baylor, so maybe we shouldn't be questioning it at all. He had an interesting, that is Matt Rule, had an interesting comment about recruiting. He goes, people misunderstand recruiting. Recruiting is about finding guys that fit your scheme and that can play football, and you find a position for them. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But he has very little patience, it feels like, for recruiting rankings. I think his best rankings were in the 30s at Baylor.
Yeah,
and those were much higher than when he was at Temple. I think now at Nebraska, more resources. Nebraska is building and almost completing a $160 million training facility, which is going to help them. But I think there are going to be sometimes 4 stars right in the backyard that Matt Rule might say, you know what? It doesn't fit what I want to do. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take Jalen Lloyd instead. I think that he just has a plan, and it's not just a plan because it's the first year of the Rule era. I think it's going to be something that they commit to. Maybe not this much because it is the initial recruiting year for them. We'll see how it goes going forward, but I think they have a plan and they're going to stick to the plan.
The plan's worked. That's the bottom line. The proof is in the pudding, and the pudding says, 10-win seasons in year 2 or 3. So
I like pudding. You like pudding?
I'm not a fan, actually.
You don't like no pudding? What's wrong with you?
I don't know.
Tapioca, chocolate?
No, it's just
butterscotch?
Too sweet. Too sweet.
Oh, you're sour. You're more sour.
Yeah,
than sweet.
Most people that know me know I'm really, really sour. So
you are not sour. Sometimes we can be a little sour. I want to talk a little bit more about recruiting, some Husker basketball, where the Hoiberg era is going. What does he need to do? What does Fred Hoiberg need to do this year? Because a lot of people have said, you know what, you beat Creighton, you're good. But then Creighton lost 5 in a row.
6.
Now 6 in a row. So what does Fred Hoiberg need to do? It was not a pretty performance last night. Nebraska was outworked in a 71-56 loss to Kansas State. What do you think that Fred Hoiberg needs to do, if anything, the rest of this year? Maybe he just earned his keep by beating Creighton. That goes a long ways with a lot of Husker fans. But I want to talk a little more Husker basketball. We'll get to Husker volleyball. We're going to talk not only John Cook and where the program's headed as far as the 5-year plan, maybe in a transition era of John Cook. And he's winding down his career. I mean, we can say that, I think. And we'll talk to Tanya Taki about it and the Final Four. She watched it last night. Texas, your new national champion in volleyball. Boo. Even though you're kind of happy for Kayla Caffey and you're kind of happy.
No, I'm not.
For Akana.
No,
you're miserable. You don't like those. We like those girls. We just don't like Texas.
Exactly. It's sorry. No.
Yeah. All right. But let's get to break. We'll talk more sports. That's what we do on this show. It's Husker Rewind. Mike Melby there. Tom Stevens here. Back with more after this.
You had to know that when Wingstop set out to make a crispy, juicy chicken sandwich, they wouldn't make it in just one flavor. They'd make it in all 12, like lemon pepper, mango habanero, hickory smoked barbecue, and OG hot. So why have one new favorite chicken sandwich when you can have 12? Try the new sauced and tossed Wingstop chicken sandwich today for only $5.49 at Wingstop, where flavor gets its wings. Valid for a limited time and available at participating Wingstop locations only while supplies last. Price subject to applicable taxes and fees.
When you were a kid, clubs were cool. Robotics club or space club and stuff like that. But what do adults get? Book clubs and quilting clubs? No, forget that. How about a margarita club? Get to Upside Bar and Lounge and join the best club in town. 10 flavors of margaritas like Maui Wowie, burnt pineapple, and mango tango. Try all 10 of them and receive your own souvenir margarita glass. Make it your new Monday night tradition. $4 margaritas and $4 taco baskets. Grab the crew and head on over Monday nights or any night. Upside Bar and Lounge at 29th and Pine Lake.
This is Jay Foreman, 93.7 The Ticket. Talk to you about Battle in the Vault. 3 games, 1 ticket for the whole day. Tuesday, December 20th. Game times are 1, 4, and 6:30 p.m. Concordia against Oklahoma Westland. Number 23, Mississippi State against Drake. Nebraska against Queens University. Down at PBA. Be there and don't be late.
At Koppel, during the holidays, we take time to cherish our terrific staff, community, and loyal customers that continue to drive that money-saving mile to Louisville, Nebraska. Hi, this is Sean Callahan. I can proudly say I bought my car at Koppel. And if you are in the area, I invite you to stop by Koppel Chevrolet GMC's offices in Louisville or check them out online at koppelcars.com. On behalf of Koppel Chevrolet GMC, Merry Christmas and safe travels to all.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza, the big one, all the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend. This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
to the nice docile tones of Five Finger Death Punch. Welcome back to Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Belby. That's Tom Stevens. It is Husker Rewind here on 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. And Nebraska basketball yesterday they had the majority of the week off. A lot of colleges did for finals. And Huskers take on K-State. It's a school that did not recruit Derek Walker. I know he was not thrilled with that. And
none of the Kansas schools.
Nobody did.
Missouri passed on him. Kansas State passed on him. Kansas obviously passes on most everybody, unless you're a top 10 national recruit.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is probably the two most, I don't want to say worst, but probably the two worst games that Derek Walker's played in his career have been against Kansas State. Is it mental? Is it just the way they defend it, specifically him? Not because, he's from the Kansas City area, but just because of the way the teams he's played on when K-State's been the opponent. That's the way they decided to attack him. But at any rate, Nebraska drops it 71-56 last night. It was really ugly for a while. And the quote from Fred Hoiberg, it was all about the basics. It was getting back in transition. It was taking care of the basketball, and it was rebounding. And we got our ass kicked in all three areas. We're not talented enough. We're not good enough to get outworked. And they did. They simply got outworked. It was something I didn't think I would see this year from that someone else would outwork Nebraska for a solid 40 minutes. Nebraska didn't give up. The effort was there, but they just flat out got outworked throughout the entire game. Not a lot of teams are going to be able to do that because not a lot of teams are built to work that way. K-State obviously is. And they took it to the Huskers last night. But when your two best shooters shoot 13% from the field for the night, you're not going to win many games.
We had this conversation early this morning when I called you, and we meant to have a, as always.
and I got you in trouble with
Heidi. It was a family dinner, and I was late. I hadn't showered yet, and we were supposed to leave in 5 minutes. But we had this conversation about what happens with shooters that are great shooters in high school that get to Nebraska and some sort of thing happens to their mind. Or maybe it's a fungus that we don't know about, and they become bad shooters because CJ Wilcher is a top 100 recruit. He shot 40% last year, and maybe he turns it around because it kind of happened to him a little bit last year where he started poor and he got better as the season went along. But, Keisei Tamanaga, the Japanese Steph Curry was the word used to describe him. Played in the Olympics, can really shoot, has been really hard to watch. He was 1 of 8, 0 of 4 from three-point range. When your two best shooters can't shoot and you depend on your two best shooters being able to shoot, you're really in trouble. And I asked you this question over the phone before I got in trouble from my wife. Who is the best shooter? Who's been the best shooter over the last 10 years to play for the University of Nebraska?
And you and I both, you said the name before I could, is Andrew White. And
he left Nebraska.
And he didn't want to play here.
I think he was, and he made the right decision, by the way. He went to Syracuse, and I think they made 16. I think they went to a Sweet 16 that year. He never played in the NBA, as far as I know. I think he got a cup of coffee in the G League. Very good shooter. You would think that, Kansas has 4 of those guys every year. I'm not comparing Nebraska to Kansas, but maybe I'll compare them to one of their next opponents, Iowa. Iowa and Fran McCaffrey takes guys ranked in the 200s in many cases in basketball rankings, but he takes the right guys and they spread the floor. They play like Creighton normally does, and they knock down threes, and they're fun to watch, and it's pretty. And I thought that's what we were getting with Fred Hoiberg. Because we saw that already at Iowa State.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because you needed to get NBA players. Yeah, Keegan Murray is one of those guys in the NBA for Iowa, and Iowa has their guys that go to the NBA. I get that. They have really good players, but it's mostly through development that they get their really good players. I thought that's what we would see more from Fred Hoiberg, and in year 4, we're not seeing that.
No, and off the Starter Heyman text line, right said Fred's third cousin, Fred probably, just chimed in, and he did have a great stat for as much as we're dogging on Keisei. He is 19 of 19 from the line. I am knocking
he is a
on wood.
Great free throw shooter.
Yep. And the one thing for those that are listening that are high school players, that are younger kids playing basketball, or if you just know somebody, the one thing that you'll notice about Keisei Tominaga when he gets to the line, Don't worry about the routine that he goes through trying to emulate it. That's not why he's good at it. It's because the routine never, ever, ever, ever deviates.
Yeah.
And it is one. There are some players that have changed up and modified their routine. There's some guys that don't follow it. They still shoot great. But when I was playing basketball, I wasn't great at it. But the one thing I could do was shoot free throws, and it was all routine. And the way he'll do the dribbles, and he spins the ball, and then there's one more, and he adjusts his arm, and then one more dribble and shoots. It's all routine. But the young man is key from the line. We got to start posting him up and get him to the line 15 times a game.
Well, I would like him to shoot a lot, but maybe that's not volume shooting might help. But he took 8 shots, and he made one of them. He was 0 for 4 from 3. He's getting some pretty good looks, and they're just not going down. He's getting a lot of minutes. I thought. Another thing about Casey is I thought he would be bigger than he is right now after a year in the weight program at Nebraska. It doesn't look like he's put on much weight, and I think he's sometimes easy to push off the line and bump around.
Yeah, and if he doesn't come off a ball screen clean, because the key thing is if you're a shooter, one of the most important things is balance. And if you get that little hip check as you're trying to come off a ball screen, because you're trying to cut it as close as you can to get to the spot where you're open, balance is so key. And obviously weight and a little bit more strength will help him, but he is still a young man. I mean, he's only 20 years old or 19 years old, and
he has one more year after this one, I believe.
Yeah. You want to go through the schedule and try to find wins?
Yeah, well, yeah. Jamarcus Lawrence is a guy that I can be excited about. I think going forward, I think he had a nice game. But shooting is a concern. But yeah, I'd like to go through the schedule, and because the conversation with me is this isn't over. I mean, yeah, the Creighton win was nice, but now they've lost 6 in a row.
Yep.
So that's not going to help you right now as far as strength of schedule is concerned. Purdue would have helped you.
Yep.
I think Purdue is a good basketball team. I don't think they're a great basketball team. They beat Davison at home by 8 points last night.
Did you read about the toxic culture in Purdue football, and they were happy
yes,
that
Jeff Brom
that was leaving?
I
found that was really interesting.
I actually had that on my talking points today. We should hit that at some point during the end of the show.
Might have to.
That it feels like people at Purdue do not miss Jeff Brom as much as Jeff Brom might miss Jeff Brom. And I understand he was going to go to Louisville maybe anyway because that's his alma mater.
Yeah, people were surprised he didn't go a few years ago.
But I do want to have the conversation about Fred Hoiberg. Is he safe? Because I think a lot of people feel like he is because he beat Creighton and they're playing hard. My feeling is playing hard should be an expectation. I understand. Yeah, we thought could this team be an elite defense? Well, they weren't elite last night. They were not even great. They're still solid compared to other Nebraska defenses. What does Hoiberg need to do, in your opinion, this year? Does he need to do anything? They're finally giving effort, so that's good enough.
Well, I mean, there's 19 games left, and if Nebraska's 6-25 at the end of the season, or 6-26 because they got one game in the Big Ten tournament, no, he's not back.
What if they get they won 10 games last year? If they get to 11, that's improvement. You could say that's improvement.
You could, but I don't think that's going to save his job. There's 19 games left. 18 of them are in the Big Ten. Then that's the other thing. Don't forget, Nebraska started out with literally the most difficult possible schedule in the Big Ten.
I get that.
They could, and it seems that's the way every year. Thanks, Big Ten. Love you too.
Always start them on the road at Indiana, top 10 team.
Yeah, and that it is what it is. You got to play them at some point, but it would be nice to play a Northwestern or a Penn State or a Rutgers that's not normally one of the perennial powers in one of your first couple of games. But that's not what happens almost every year. So Nebraska's 6-6. You got to assume Tuesday night against Queens of North Carolina, they're going to pick up a win. So that would give them one more win. Then they've got Iowa at home on Thursday, the 29th of December. Win or loss, Tom?
Iowa's won by 30 last night. I know it was Southeast Missouri. It was one of those directional schools, Southeast Missouri State, Tech. But Iowa's good. They're 8-2. I don't think they win that game the way they're playing right now.
Okay. You make that call. I think we win. Michigan State on the road, January 3rd.
Oh, they don't win that game. They're not going to win that game.
Minnesota on the road, January 7th.
That's a coin flip game. That is a game you probably should win, but it is a road game. And Nebraska hasn't always played well on the road.
I'm not going to be surprised if they win both. That's going to be a split for me. Illinois at home on January 10th.
No.
You think that's a loss as well?
Illinois beat Texas.
Okay. Creighton almost did.
Yeah.
Even shooting 4 of 27 from 3.
I just think Illinois is really, although they've got another coach that I don't really like. There's a lot of coaches in this league that I don't like. And that's not a problem for me with Hoiberg. I like Fred Hoiberg a lot.
Instead of ranking the basketball teams in the Big Ten during basketball season like we did in football,
the coaches that we don't like.
Should we just rank Tom's least favorite coaches by week?
Well, that's something we have to do. Maybe during our blitz, we're going to start ranking our teams coming up. I'd say we got to get a better feel for this league and how good it is. True. Because I told you Purdue's the number 1 team in the country. I don't think they are. I think they're a top 15 team. I think they're somewhere around 15. But we'll find out how good this league is going forward.
And the thing is, from the Big Ten Blitz or doing rankings and all that type of stuff, we're going to have 3 weeks to let games play out, because obviously with Christmas and New Year's we won't have shows here the next couple of Sundays. So I'm assuming you're taking a Nebraska loss at Purdue on January 13th.
Yeah, Purdue doesn't lose. They haven't lost, period, and they don't lose at home.
Okay. How about Ohio State at home January 18th?
I'll say they get that one.
Okay.
I'll say Nebraska gets that one. But that's a coin flip game.
Okay. And let's go on the road at Penn State January 21st.
Penn State's better than you think.
Win or loss?
Okay, I'll give them that win.
Okay.
I'll give them that win.
How about could they do 3 in a row and beat Northwestern at home at home then on January 24th?
No, this is where Nebraska wins 2 in a row. You're really excited, and they flop at home.
Okay. At Maryland, January 28th.
No, Maryland's good. Maryland's really good.
At Illinois, January 31st.
No, that's a loss.
Okay.
This is fun. I love this game. We played it many times before, the radio scheduling game. And you come up with the record based on what you're feeling at that very moment in time.
Okay, so February 5th, they play at home against Penn State.
Yes.
They beat them on the road, so they're going to beat them twice.
They're going to beat Penn State. They're going to sweep Penn State this year.
Okay, at Michigan, February
8th. That's a loss.
Versus Wisconsin at home, February 11th. A no-sit Saturday.
Yes, I say Nebraska wins that game.
At Rutgers, February 14th.
That's a loss.
Really?
Yes.
2 ugly teams?
Well, Rutgers, that's what they do. 2 really ugly teams, and Rutgers will be uglier and still win.
All righty. 3 of the last 4 are at home, all in a row. February 19th, Maryland.
Loss.
February 25th, Minnesota.
That's a win.
February 28th, Michigan State.
I'll give us a win there.
And at Iowa, March 5th.
That's a loss.
All righty. So Tom has got 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 7 more wins. So that gets Nebraska to 13 and 18. And at 13 and 18, I would make an educated guess that Fred Hoiberg does not return for a 5th year.
And a lot of those games I picked, I didn't think Nebraska would really win, but I gave them the win. I mean, that's a tough schedule. That is a really tough. That's a tough schedule. How many more wins do you have for Nebraska?
You had what wound up being 7 more wins. I had 10 more wins.
Yeah. Well, that'd get you to 16, and that would get
you up 16 and 14 heading into the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah. Remember as Tim Miles wins that second game, I think it was, of the Big Ten tournament, and he knew he was probably gone, but he was cheering as he went to the locker room, and then he trips over the court. Trips over the court. I wonder what Hoiberg will do as he's going to the locker room, because it could be a similar situation. It could be very similar in the Big Ten tournament. Is this how many games does Hoiberg have to win to save his job in the Big Ten tournament?
That could be off the Sutter Heyman text line. Fred says Penn State is way too good. They sweep us. So
Penn State's really good. So Nebraska's in a world of hurt right now, and I just don't see how much better they can get. Yeah, you can say if you're Fred Hoiberg, and he has, that's just not good enough as far as effort is concerned.
No, he didn't say effort.
Well, he implied it.
He said we got outworked.
Working is effort, right? It's an effort-related thing. I paraphrasing again. I guess I translated to me. He felt like they beat us. I mean, their energy was better than Nebraska's energy. Yeah. We didn't match it. He says that all the time, and that's something because they don't have a lot of talent. They don't have a ton of skill, but they do have guys that are athletic and can work. And that's got to be the constant for Nebraska basketball. And it just wasn't there at a high enough level.
No. And when your starting point guard sits the last 7 minutes and 32 seconds based on a coach's decision, he's not having a great game either. And it's a frustrating game for everybody that's a Husker Hoops fan, by all means. But they get a chance to turn it around on Tuesday against Queens. We'll see. I think it's a game they need to win in convincing fashion.
Yeah, you got to win big.
Yeah, if that's like I told you earlier, if that's a 61-59 win in triple overtime, we might be a little bit more worried than we were a week ago about Nebraska basketball.
I still like this team better than any other Hoiberg team. I mean, I love the effort, but it's got to lead to something eventually.
Well, and right now, when the guys on this team, when most of them, not all of them have to, but when most of them, a majority, do their job.
Right.
They don't have to be spectacular. Just do your job. For Jawan Gary, it's rebound, get hustle plays, put backs. Maybe you knock down one of your 3 threes that you're allowed to take. That's us only allowing him to take that many. Anyway, but when Derek Walker's doing what he does, finishing at the hoop, getting rebounds, when Keita comes in and takes charges, does it defensively, gets offensive boards, when Griesel just simply lets the game come to him, he needs to figure out sometimes when it's not, he may need to go get the game.
Yeah.
And
I like it for him to take more shots. He was 2 of 4 last night.
And when CJ and Casey are doing their jobs, this team is tough to play against because it is not often they get outworked.
Oh, I think there's still going to be nights when I showed that in my predictions. They're going to win games where they shouldn't.
Yep.
But they're also going to lose games that they shouldn't. That's the frustrating thing about Nebraska basketball. That's kind of been a constant since going back to Doc Sadler. I mean, it's been
Barry Collier.
Barry Collier. It's been a long time since Nebraska has been dominant. Danny Nee. That was a long, long time ago since the 90s were here. There's still good times for Nebraska volleyball, but they did not make the Final Four. They did not play in the Final Four. But a former Nebraska player who won a national championship did make the Final Four and lost to Texas last night, a team which included 2 former Huskers. So maybe you're a little bit happy about that today.
Nope.
But Mike is not. We will talk a little volleyball, Final Four volleyball, one more time with Tanya Taki. We get to talk to her one more time, and then if she decides to come in the studio and talk about other sports some other time, we would love to have her as well. But we'll break down Texas versus Louisville, talk about the future of Nebraska volleyball, where it's headed. Does it include Danny Butzboom?
Well, and the other thing I kind of want to talk to her about a little bit is the future of college volleyball. Because let's be honest with you, this is one of the most exciting sports, one of the biggest growing sports in the country today. And ESPN treats it like it's a redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
You got Nebraska playing at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
And
That's
it's
ridiculous.
just silly. And the fact that it's on ESPN, something that nobody gets, and you're showing like the cornhole championships on ESPN or something stupid. I mean,
let's face it. I would, in many cases, rather watch, unless it's Nebraska men's basketball, I would rather watch women's college volleyball in many, many cases than men's basketball in some cases. I mean, in a lot of cases, actually. I mean, it's just a good product. And I think you're right. It's not being promoted at a high enough level. You had 15,000, 16,000 almost in Omaha last night to watch that match. I understand Nebraska fans are rabid volleyball fans in general. But still, Nebraska volleyball needs to be promoted at a higher level.
I agree. National pundits were asked to weigh in on, well, what do you think about Omaha, being the Final Four destination place, et cetera? And like almost every national person goes, outside of Columbus, Ohio, which is miles behind, this is far and away the best setup, the best everything to showcase college volleyball and what it is all about.
By the way, where else do you get, with Nebraska not even on the court, do you hear Go Big Red chants?
That was awesome.
That was pretty cool. Let's get to break. Come back with Tanya Taki, one of the great middle blockers in Nebraska volleyball history, and really good at breaking down volleyball matches. We'll talk to her coming up next. It is Husker Rewind.
This is Jay Foreman, 93.7 A Ticket. Talk to you about Battle in the Vault. 3 games, 1 ticket for the whole day. Tuesday, December 20th. Game times are 1, 4, and 6:30 p.m. Concordia against Oklahoma Westland. Number 23, Mississippi State against Drake. Nebraska against Queens University down at PBA. Be there and don't be late.
This is Megan Whitaker from the Nebraska golf team. If you've put your clubs away for the winter, it's time to get them back out. There's no need to stop thanks to Double Eagle Golf. Double Eagle is home to Lincoln's best indoor golf simulators. It's perfect for every level of golfer, with everything from casual games for the kids to hyper-realistic simulations of some of the best courses in the world. And the best part, no matter what the weather's doing outside, it's always golf weather inside. See for yourself. Double Eagle Golf, just 5 minutes from downtown at the Kinetic Sports Complex on West O Street.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam! Ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit stoptextstoprex.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer.
In response to attacks against Asian Americans, Maddie Park raised over $250,000 to donate cab rides to the Asian community.
There is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Support the Asian community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Husker Sunday Rewind. Tom Stevens and Mike Melby with you. Texas, your new national champ in volleyball. 3-set win over Louisville last night in Omaha in front of about 16,000 people. A lot of Nebraska fans there, but Nebraska was not playing. Texas was and wins the national title. How sad are you today, Tanya? Tanya Taki.
Well, I don't know if sad's quite the right word for it. I mean, I think it was a great event. It was a great venue. Omaha and Nebraska always does a really good job of supporting the sport. You know, I mean, obviously I'm a huge Horns Down fan, but I think if anybody deserved to win a national championship, it was probably Texas or Wisconsin, and Texas got it done.
You know, sadly, Tanya, I agree with you. Texas just, they had a hell of a team, and they did deserve it. I just hate them. From the standpoint, though, of, I want to talk college volleyball as a whole, as the sport. Unbelievably disappointing to someone who's, I'm more than a casual fan. I'm not an avid fan, though. I just love the sport. I can watch two teams, especially, you know, teams that are in top 25 that are very good teams. I don't care who they are. I can watch the game and enjoy it and be excited by plays that are just spectacular from pure athleticism standpoints. My feeling is that ESPN totally dropped the ball with what they did with the tournament this year, almost making it secondhand. Like, oh yeah, tip of the cap to volleyball. Woohoo, they're growing in popularity. Let's have them play at 10 in the morning on some obscure network that no one has access to. What are your thoughts on college volleyball as a whole? And how do you think things can change to make it better, be promoted more than it is today?
Right. Well, I mean, I grew up through the ranks of it wasn't on TV. So when we played in the Wisconsin Final Four in 1998, I believe that was the first time the finals was on ESPN, or one of the main stations. Up until that point, it wasn't on TV at all. And so that was 1998. And, you know, being part of the Coach Pettit era, you know, he always talked about how, you know, we were the start of volleyball mattering. They used to set up their own chairs. The players had to set up chairs. They had to set up their own nets. They had to, you know, give away free tickets to the games. You know, that was happening in, you know, the 90s. And so when we won a national championship in 95, that's, you know, 93, 94, 95, when we were Big 8 champions. And I think that just started to shift a little bit. And so when all of the games are being televised, it kind of happened when the Twins were playing. I don't remember what year that was, maybe 2016, 17. That's when the games, like the final 8 or the 16, were even on TV at all. And I think NET played the Penn State Nebraska game where we were down by 4 to lose the match and came back and won, and then we had won a national championship that year. So it was like the 4 points that saved Nebraska was actually on NET at the time. And so it's just evolved, it's just kind of a slow roll evolve that's happening. And so I'm actually like really impressed that the games are on anything at all, because, there's schools that, South Dakota State or some of those schools that aren't part of the big conferences aren't having their games televised. And so then to have your first round game, Weber State, have they ever had a game on ESPN? Probably never. And so I think that those programs are getting nationally watched by players that are be recruited. That's huge for the sport. And so I'm probably one of those that are just like, wow, I'm just impressed that we're on and that it's gaining momentum. And then obviously, the Wisconsin coach came out and said 10 o'clock was terrible, and Nebraska Coach Cook was saying 10 o'clock was terrible. But I was like, it's every round is on TV. I'm excited. So.
Yeah,
fair enough.
And they do that during the NCAA men's tournament. I mean, you see games starting at 11 a.m. all the time during the NCAA tournament. How big is the ceiling for volleyball? How much higher can it go, in your opinion?
Well, I think we're in the super senior situation. I mean, I don't know that Texas would be as good as they are if they didn't have those 5th year, 7th. I mean, I think Michaela Caffey's in year 7.
Yep.
So getting all these extra years and, Skinner transfer, there was 4 transfers on that team, that starting lineup. The Skinner played at Kentucky, won a national championship and came to Texas her 5th year. You have Akana, you have Caffey, and there's I know there's another girl. I just don't know all the details, but to have 4 transfers in that are national championship quality, I mean, that's going to be humongous. And Texas has always had a really good, strong, solid front row. They just always pass really bad, and so they've cleaned that up, and they're a force to be reckoned with. So I think until this 5th year senior extra year transfer thing is over, I mean, we have phenomenal players staying around for 5 years. That's really changing our sport and our recruiting also right now.
And they're able to stick around with the COVID year, and then NIL helps as well, because the really good players can go make money playing professionally overseas, soon to be here in the States as well. But the big story around Nebraska athletics this week, with volleyball not being in the Final Four, has been Nebraska football recruiting and the fun that Matt Rule's having on Twitter and the transfer portal. There's not only a transfer portal, though, for football players. There is for volleyball players. And the amount of talent that has entered the transfer portal from other Big Ten teams, including the best setter in the country from Ohio State, is a bit astounding. Do you see, even though I know John Cook, I think it's kind of said he's not really overly interested in going after transfers, do you think he might dip a toe in the water and try to maybe land somebody?
I mean, if he's listening, can he please take her for 1 year? Can we please have the best setter in the Big Ten for 1 year? That'd be amazing. Like all of us have already saw that. We were texting back and forth, like, what does it take to get this girl for 1 year? And then have your freshman all-star coming up, have a year of training and, learning, and then have her be the starting setter as a sophomore. Like, can we do that? That'd be amazing. I mean, I know that kind of puts Orr completely on the back burner, or even not even on a burner, but and I don't necessarily want that to happen, but if she's not going to step up and be the player, then we need other options.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was excited. But yeah, the transfer portal has definitely changed volleyball in general, the opportunities for girls to maybe get a scholarship. And we'll see what happens with Ani Evans. Like, she was a walk-on. She was happy to be just part of the team, but she got a taste of getting to play and had, some success, to be second in the Big Ten. I think that's where we ended as a setter on a Husker team. Like, there's going to be a school that's going to pick her up and she gets 2 years of scholarship. Like, that's an amazing opportunity that wasn't there, 7 years ago. So props to her, and let's see where, like, she would be a great example of where the portal is going to make a big difference in her life. To have a scholarship for 2 years is, that could be $40,000-$50,000 of debt you don't have to pay.
And it's not like John Cook has completely ignored the portal. Caitlin Horde was from the portal from Penn State and made a big difference on the Nebraska volleyball team, talking with Tanya Taki, one of the great middle blockers in Nebraska volleyball history, and the coach at Nebraska 1. So it's in the fourth set. And Louisville is up 24-22. Texas calls a timeout. They rally. They get 4 straight points, and they win it on an Akana serve, which is kind of ironic for Nebraska fans. But was there ever a feeling last night where you felt Louisville could win this thing?
Well, actually, so I wasn't sure where your question was going, but the most exciting part of that 24-22 timeout was that the entire building started saying, "Go Big
Yeah, I saw
Red."
that. Yeah.
Go Big Red. And I know, like Danny said on our post-game press conference, that that's not the Louisville cheer, but there were so many Nebraska fans and they're wearing red jerseys. And so it just seemed fitting. And like in that moment, I think everybody kind of knew that Louisville wasn't going to win the match because they were outmatched by Texas at every single position. Like Texas overpowered them at every position. I think people just wanted to see another game. Like, don't make it a sweep. Let's win one. We were all cheering for them. They only needed 1 point and couldn't pull out 1 point. But I also think that fuels Texas also. Like, Texas operates on hate. Like, they want to be hated. They purposely put things out there. Their assistant coach is banging on his chest like a gorilla. Like, they feed off of hate. And so I think that cheer also fired them up because, you know, they felt the hate and wanted to show them who's boss. So it was a very cool moment, and it was just to show how awesome the state of Nebraska and the Omaha community supported the volleyball that was happening, and also our own Danny Busboom, who's trying to be the first woman to win a national championship at volleyball. So
Tanya Taki, former
cool moment.
It really was. Tanya Taki, former middle blocker for Nebraska, head coach at Nebraska 1. I want to ask you about something you just said. Texas simply overpowered Louisville. They overpowered them, overmatched them at every position. Nebraska has some unbelievable talent in the system right now. The one, call it gigantic, missing piece is a setter that is simply that good to allow your hitters to do what they do best and overpower other teams. How close is Nebraska to being able to overpower and become someone like Texas was this year?
Right. So I'm not sure, like, if we were to go position and like talk about like, okay, the right side from Texas was just phenomenal. That girl is humongous. She hit she has some sort of GPS on the block and hits either through it, around it, over it. Like, that girl is amazing. And that would be our Whitney Lowenstein. Like, is Whitney compatible with that girl? I think that girl takes her right now, but I also think Whitney wasn't getting sets all season to be that powerhouse. And so it's hard to say right now, but obviously Texas is going to get that tip tap for that position. Obviously they win the setter position. Their libero is just phenomenal. I mean, we have that. So that might be the most equal spot we have. I think Alec has the potential to be a very good middle. You know, Asia O'Neal is a phenomenal athlete. And I don't know what everybody's graduation, who's staying, you know. So I think that there's places that we can go pound for pound. I think where we kind of fall short is our outsides being able to terminate. And I don't know how much of that is our outside hitters or is it the setting, you know? So I think getting us a setter who can put the ball in position to hit around blocks, hit over blocks, hit through blocks, hit on the side of blocks, you know, having that outside hitter have more creativity than just, oh, this is a bad set. I only have one shot and the block obviously knows it, so I get blocked. I think that can start putting us in position to be that Wisconsin level, that Texas level. And it was just hard because I just felt like all year long we were never there because our hitters weren't getting the ball.
And they have so much firepower, and Logan Eggleston is a National Player of the Year. They're just absolutely loaded at every position. And Nebraska will be, you think, going forward as well. My question is about the next coach, because you'd like to, I would think that John Cook is thinking, you know, 5 years down the road, that maybe he won't be the head coach in 5 years. In 5 years, will John Cook be the head coach at the University of Nebraska?
I mean, I think that he can do whatever he wants to do. Like, he's John Cook. He's earned his, I want to do this. Okay, let's do that. I want to do this. Okay, let's do that. I think having him have his horse side, you know, focus has been really good for him to be able to maybe make it a little longer, because I think when you get so focused on one thing always and just you live, eat, breathe, sleep this one thing, it just starts to like wear on you and take life off of your years. And then to have this other hobby that he has with the horses, I think might be able to balance that out a little bit. And so then he could continue for longer, but then are you doing a disservice because you're not as uber focused? You know what I mean? So I think there's going to be a point in there where he's like, I'm ready to be done because I can't put in everything I can put in. But I think his side focus has helped him maybe sustain a little bit longer. I would like to see Danny Busboom be the next head coach at Nebraska. I'm just wondering if we waited too long and she's had too much success at Louisville to ever want to leave. Her dad is my daughter's like softball coach. Not that he coaches her, but like he's the coach that would work with the girls in softball. And so I see him from time to time, and I've always asked him, hey, is Danny coming back? And he's like, it would be a tough conversation because she loves what she has, but she also has a baby and would love to be back at Nebraska to have grandma and grandpa there all the time. So I think it's just hard. Like she has a baby, but she's made the Louisville what it is, and that's also her baby. So she's a special person there. She's developed something special there, and she kind of has a good thing going. So does she keep that going or have that opportunity? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I can ever be the predictor, but that's just kind of the outlook of what's happening right now.
All right. Tanya, what does 2023 bring for Nebraska 1 volleyball?
2023 has been a good season, like good outlook for us as far as like players wanting to play at Nebraska 1. And so we have a really good group of girls who are, trying to get recruited, but then we also have our very first nines team. We have 12 girls on a nines team that'll split into 2 teams and do 6-on-6. So we have every level, and I think people are excited. We have our Christmas parties next week, but the exciting thing for me in 2023 is that I'm going to go watch Jordan Larson play volleyball in Milan.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, I got some Cyber Monday special deals on trips to Europe. It was an email from United, and it was almost ridiculous not to go. The trip in January is cheaper than going to Vegas.
How well do you know Jordan?
So Rachel Colwell is one of my coaches, and so Rachel and Jordan were teammates. And then Jordan worked out at the place I worked out all this last couple months. So I've had a couple of good conversations with her. She's talked at our place a couple times, but I'm mostly going as a complete fan and bringing her best friend with me. So Rachel and I are going to go with our husbands to Milan and watch and support Jordan. So it's her last season of being, she says it's her last season, but man, when you are the best in the world, that's kind of hard to step away from being that person.
Yeah, it's tough to walk away when you're that good, and you probably could win another one if you wanted to. It's
right.
been
I mean, the girls from Brazil are playing and they're 40-something years old. So she's only like 36, maybe. So
35, actually.
That's
I believe.
another 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah. It's been fun talking volleyball with you. Come on in on your off weekends. If you're not coaching or doing something, come on in and talk sports with us.
Okay, I can definitely do that.
All
I'm
right.
excited to hear how the women's basketball team is going to do. We had a couple. Markowski played Nebraska 1, so I've worked with her. I was coaching her, so it's always good to see those local girls doing a really great job at the national level. So.
Yep. Thanks, Tanya. We've loved talking to you. We'll talk to you again next fall.
Sounds great.
There you go, Tanya Taki. And by the way, Megan Mendelson is going to be on the basketball team.
And I can give you a couple of updates if you would like.
Okay.
Nebraska women's basketball is underway at PBA against Wyoming. They currently lead 23-11, 6:04 left in the first half. Nebraska's currently on a 9-0 run. And the very first 2 points of Maggie Mendelson's career were free throws that she just hit moments ago. When she checked into the game, standing ovation from the crowd.
Oh, awesome.
So that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. She could change, especially defensively early. I would think that she could change. I mean, middle blocker. It suggests that she could maybe block a few shots, right?
Yeah, she's got what
hops.
People in the business like to call hops.
Yeah,
and it's not alcohol related with beer. It is literally the ability to. I had hops. I could actually.
You had some hops.
I barely could.
What was your vertical? David Thompson.
Know.
I mean,
no. Here's what I can tell you. On a 10-foot rim, I was able to dunk a volleyball.
Nice.
At 5'9" tall.
That's impressive.
When I was just out of high school, I don't know if I did it. I didn't play in basketball in high school other than a little JV. But
I think Markowski now won't have to play as much center.
Yep.
And you can move her, more to a more natural position, I think, at forward. I think it could really change the dynamic of that team. It'll be interesting to see what she can add to the Nebraska basketball team. I do want to talk a little more football. The The Dylan Raiola decommitment is interesting to me. Where does Nebraska stand? Is he considering Nebraska? I would think he is. By the way, his dad played at Nebraska and it was pretty good. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and where you think Dylan Raiola will end up, the number one recruit for the class of 2024. It's winding down. It's Husker Rewind. We do it every Sunday, usually from 5 until 7. Today, Broncos football starts at 3 o'clock. So we're on early talking a little of everything. Husker sports.
What we do.
Yeah, that's what we kind of do. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. Back with more after this.
This year, give the gift of delicious food, incredible service, and a lasting memory with the Pillar Restaurant Group gift card. Our holiday gift card special is back. When you purchase a $50 gift card, receive a $5 bonus card, or purchase a $100 gift card to receive a $20 bonus card. These cards can be used at all Pillar Restaurant Group locations, including Venue Restaurant and Lounge, Piedmont Bistro, Cactus, and all Lincoln Good Sense subs. Available for purchase at any of our concepts or online at prgnebraska.com.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People City Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
How is your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
More of the Sunday Rewind is coming your way next.
60% of the time, it works every time.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind every Sunday, other than Christmas and New Year's.
That's right. We're off next week.
Yeah, and the week after. Or are we going to try to do a show on New Year's Day?
Then you won't be able to give me a gift. I was looking forward to that.
No, actually, I've got a gift in mind for you, and I'm going to either have you swing over or we'll meet for a drink or something this week, and I'll give it to you.
Actually, you don't need to give me anything. Nebraska gave it to me. You beat Iowa. Then you beat Creighton.
Yeah.
I'm good, actually, for all of my Christmas gifts right now. Although Heidi and I went to Costco yesterday, and we're like, I'll get you that. And she's like, okay, I'll get you that. And she got me a big thing of bourbon, and she was going to tie a ribbon around it before I drank it. But I think I drank it already.
I hate it when that happens.
No, I'm kidding. I didn't drink a whole bottle of bourbon in one night, as far as you know.
I was going to say, as far as I know. So with it's been a crazy week. It's been so fun to follow the Nebraska coaches on Twitter. It's dinner and a show type.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt Rule is fantastic on Twitter. It is so fun to watch. Does it translate to wins on the field? We'll find out, in 10 months or 9 months, whatever. Well, 8 months now, I guess, the end of April or end of August. But it's been wild. It's been crazy with the transfer portal, with the early signing period this Wednesday, high school commits, transfers. We could wind up with ultimately 3 former Florida Gators, Corey Collier Jr.
Yeah.
Marco, what is it? Hang on.
Polo.
No, not Marco.
No.
Yeah, Marco Ortez, who's the long snapper. And then it's sounding like Chief Borders is another possibility, former Florida Gator to head to Lincoln next year. No commitment from him yet.
I wouldn't be surprised if you get commitments from guys like Malik Hornsby and Kyron Jones. You got Ramir Stewart, which was a big one. Eric Fields, I don't know how to feel about him right now, but Malachi Coleman would be a nice commit on signing day.
Yeah.
And then to have him sign as well. The one I'm really wondering about, and I know it's not for a year, it's Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
Because I know, just studying the history of Matt Rule, he likes to build the line of scrimmage. When he said that, a lot of coaches will stand up and say, yeah, I want to run the football and stop the run. Yeah. All coaches say that. But his history suggests that he does it. But he also demands great quarterback play, and he usually gets really good quarterbacks. It doesn't always mean that he gets 5-star quarterbacks like Dylan Raiola. In fact, I don't think he has had a 5-star to work with in the past. No. But he's never had a connection like Donovan Raiola in the past, the uncle of Dylan. And then Dominic also played at Nebraska, is a Hall of Famer from Nebraska, had 15 years in the NFL. And now Dylan, it seems like Nebraska is back in the picture. And whether Donovan was chosen or retained at Nebraska because of his connection there, I don't know. I think he has some skill as an offensive line coach as well. But if you can snag the number 1 recruit and a program-changing player, I'm going to consider keeping that coach. And I think they also think they've got a good offensive line coach in Donovan Raiola as well. I think Nebraska is back. Dylan Raiola is back in play for Nebraska.
I would think he is as well. I know Big Red Bass off the Starter Heyman text line earlier said it seems like it might be a bit of an insult to Matt Rule
maybe
to entertain the thought that you're only going to keep the coach to simply have a shot at his nephew. I think you made the point there. That's not the only reason you keep him. You don't keep somebody that's just not very good at their job simply to try to get. I mean, that would make no sense at all.
Let me put it this way. Danny Manning, his dad was hired at Kansas because he could deliver Danny Manning.
Yeah.
And they ended up Danny and the Miracles ended up winning the national title. If you're Michael Jordan's dad, I'm hiring you to get Michael Jordan, right? I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. You need players. I mean, any coach who says I don't need players to win is lying. You need great players to win at any level, and especially quarterback play.
Michael Porter Sr. was not exactly the best basketball coach on the planet, yet he wound up at Missouri so that his son would go there. And here's the thing, though, about Donovan Raiola being on the staff. If you are the head coach at Nebraska, the legacy with Dominic and, you want Dylan, he is the number 1 player in the class, all the things that are all just simple facts. Why would you not take advantage of the fact that you've got what, obviously Matt Rule thinks Donovan Raiola is a pretty damn good coach. Otherwise, regardless of his relationship with Dylan, I don't think he would have kept him. But it doesn't hurt that he does have that he is his uncle. It's just that simple.
This is what Dominic Raiola told 24/7 Sports. Everything is back on the table, and this is his process. It's almost like restarting. And of course, his uncle Donovan is now the offensive line coach. I think that was a big part of it. But there are other players in play. I don't think Ohio State is, but I do think that it's possible. Caleb Williams will be moving on to the NFL very soon. And USC is going to need a quarterback in that case. He considered USC. His sister is a volleyball player at TCU. TCU is currently in the college football playoff. You might consider Sonny Dykes and TCU. Who knows what I mean, he's
and-
not
and-
really he is a game-changing player. I mean, he showed up at a Friday Night Lights camp, I believe,
2 years
and I think it was actually last
Yeah,
year.
it was.
And some of the throws he was making in that camp, I have not seen a Nebraska quarterback make
ever.
And if I told you, hey, we can get this guy, his name's Tommy Frazier, but we need to hire a relative of his, I'm going to do it. Whoever that relative is, I'm going to do it. And then the bonus is that relative's also a good coach. And I think, I don't think you hire anybody to be your offensive line coach. I don't necessarily think that Scott Frost got it wrong on Donovan Raiola. I think he was dealt a very bad hand last year.
Well, and who knows from a philosophy standpoint and a want and a need standpoint how things played out and the inner workings. And Fred wants to point out again, hey, just to remember everybody, Donovan Raiola was hired before Dylan decommitted.
Right.
And you know, after the fact, maybe we will know why he decommitted. Maybe it was simply because Matt Rule had reached out, tried to recruit him, and he elected to come here. Maybe it was because Lincoln Riley reached out, told him something, and it made him reconsider going to Ohio State. Maybe the fact that Ohio State is still recruiting quarterbacks for the 2024 class or is in contact with them could be part of the reason why he decommitted. We don't know right now. And we may never know. It may not be any of our business.
Here's what I do know. Great quarterbacks change teams.
Yep.
I watched enough of Bryce Young to know that he was a big reason Alabama's good. I mean, you can point to any great quarterback and say, that guy, Tommy Frazier, led Nebraska to a national title. Without him, would you have won one? Maybe. Probably not, had he not come in for Brooke Behringer, in 1994.
Yep.
Great quarterbacks are everything in college football, and I think more so now than ever before. If he gets him, if Nebraska gets him, I'm way more optimistic about the future of Matt Rule. Because, let's face it, guys come along with those type of guys. Let's come back next week.
How about 3 weeks? Happy holidays.
That's
In every
right.
office, there's two types of people. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels and Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win, and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday, you lost Wednesday, you're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels and Joe.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for